My name is Patience Muyambo. I head up research and insights for Kasi Insight. And I'll be co-presenting with our founder, who's also the head of our data and economic intelligence, and that's Yannick Lefang. So just to give you a brief overview of who we are, just quickly, in terms of who Kasi Insights, we a market research company. We're Africa's leading provider with regards to data, indicators, and insights. So what we're trying to do is understand the opinions and attitudes and behaviors of ordinary Africans. And the difference between us and most of the other market research companies is that each month we conduct our own proprietary research, where we conduct surveys amongst ordinary Africans, and we turn this into actionable insights that we provide on our data portal, which is a self-service platform where our clients can come in and leverage this platform to get consumer insights at scale. So some of our data products have been used by leading global financial data and companies and across Africa and global corporations. Okay. So with regards to the data and analytics capability that we have, historically, only large corporates or large companies could afford to conduct market research or to access market research. And we've tried to provide access to any company by utilizing innovative research methods, which make our research really very affordable. So even startups and SMEs can access our data and our insights. Our philosophy is to provide companies with timely and reliable data from Africa. And previously, a lot of companies had challenges with accessing reliable data from Africa that's consistent. So we survey across 8 different markets, and we've built quite a huge data set over 5 years. So for the last 5 years, we've been conducting our own proprietary research, month in, month out, and this will help our clients to stay ahead and to understand the evolving consumer needs. To date, within that proprietary data set, we have over 150,000 survey interviews that have been conducted with more than 1,000 questions and over 50 brands and categories that we've done across countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, Cameroon, Tanzania, Ivory Coast, and Ethiopia, which is one of the latest countries that we added to our data set. We have questions across all different types of categories. So we have retail, media, personal care, food and beverage, finance, digital, looking at mobile, and tourism. So we've a number of data sets that we provide to our clients. One of our most popular ones is around economic intelligence. That's our consumer sentiment. We have data sets on health and wellness. We have data sets around financing, which is credit and lending. And we now have the COVID-19 data set as well.
We ask, when are we going to be back? Where do you think we're going to be back to, the back to normal, or the next normal, as some people call it? And the majority are saying that are expecting the situation in Africa to be back to normal within 3 to 6 months. And as we can see that the number of cases in Africa is now over 66,000 cases in Africa. I think it grew, I think, over 40% or 30%. In our first report, we had estimated that from a timeline perspective, that Q2 was going to be the quarter where we would see the peak in Africa. So it's definitely looking that way. And so for brands, for company, how long are we expecting to be during the crisis? but also how quickly are we going to see sign that we are emerging from the crisis? So how do we stay relevant, stay ahead of the curve, within the crisis, but also how do we prepare for the post-COVID-19? And what we are presenting here is again, like I said, a framework, because we strongly believe that having data, having analytics will help brand during the crisis, but also forecast and see what could happen, or what is to be expected after the crisis. And so if you think about why this is important, I'll bring up just quickly the consumer sentiment in the CCI in Kenya, just to show you a little bit, what we mean. So if you look at the trend, the consumer sentiment in Kenya over the past 4 years or 3.5 years that we've tracked it, you're going to see that before COVID-19, right, we had two lows. One of them, which was the lowest, was around 2017, right? And what happened in Kenya at that time was that Kenya had a very contested election, which ended up being a crisis. So you can see here, it took about 2 quarters for consumer sentiment to be back to the previous high, right? And then to basically hit a new high. So having access to this information and being able to track it on a month-to-month basis is giving brands that are working with us the ability to also not only look at what's happening, what's changing now, market shift, but also how can they position themselves in the future, and what could be that future. So that's basically what we wanted to present to you. I think there's one more. So Patience is going to wrap up with, I guess, some concluding remarks, and then we are very happy to. If you have any questions, we can answer them now. But if you also want to book a demo to look at the portal and how it works and how you can customize it to your need, feel free to reach out. We'll be very happy to do that. So Patience, over to you.
Okay. So just in conclusion, we want to talk around some thoughts for marketers or brand managers in terms of how they can position themselves to win in this crisis, or at least maintain their share throughout the crisis. We're seeing that COVID-19 is the worst recession that we've had in the 21st century. And unlike other recent recessions, like the 2008 recession, it's not limited to a particular region in the world or a particular industry. So it's affecting every country, globally, despite the number of, cases in the country. And, some of the thoughts that we had around this was, yes, we know consumers will have less disposable income during a recession. We know that people have been impacted economically. And historically, what has happened is when consumers had less disposable income, ad spend had actually declined to an extent that it was declined more than the GDP itself. So with the COVID-19 situation, we're seeing that a lot of the brands that have stepped up to the challenge, that are actually offering support and continued engagement with their clients. So not looking at their bottom line, but rather putting resources around supporting their employees, supporting their consumers, are actually winning in terms of winning on sales, as well as winning share in their respective markets. We're also seeing that what we found is when you maintain or increase your advertising spend, you actually increase your market share in the short term, and you can actually increase your profits in the long run. So when there's a reduced ad spend in a specific category, it actually reduces the noise in the category, which allows the brands that are still playing within that category to reposition themselves and actually have a higher share of voice. So it's actually an advantage for companies to actually maintain or even increase their advertising during this time of crisis, because there's less noise. And from our research, we're seeing that consumers are citing that they actually want to hear from brand. But what's important is their messaging. So what type of content, the message that they're going to be communicating with the clients. It has to resonate. It has to have the right tone and the right emotion. So people don't want to be, consumers don't want you to be seen to be profiting from this crisis. As we said, in our results are showing that when it comes to promotions and sales, consumers are saying not so much of the promotions and sales, but more a focus on messages of hope and optimism, and giving and inspiring them. There's another thought as well that around resources could be better allocated to product development or R&D rather than marketing. So in a declining market, we've seen, or at least there's literature that supports the view that sales response can actually be greater towards advertising than it is towards new products, because the cost of producing new products might actually not be as viable within a recessionary environment. However, what we're seeing is that the cost to adapt to new innovations or to execute a better or faster customer experience might actually result in positive returns for some companies. So for example, the example that Yannick referred to in South Africa, for Net Florist, which actually decided to adapt its processes and start offering its services and opening up to normal essential services like products like groceries. They actually managed to increase their sales at a time where they would have been shut down during the lockdown. So there is opportunities for companies to innovate, and those that are have agile solutions might actually win in the long term.
Okay.
So I see there were some questions that were
Yes.
asked in the chat.
Yes. So we have one question. Do people want to buy online? The data doesn't show that they may want to, but can't, because e-commerce is not available to them at the places that they want that they usually shop. So yes,
So,
I think again the shopping online trend is, as you mentioned rightly, is due to infrastructure. Because again, even if people want to shop online in Africa, we still don't have that digital infrastructure that would allow for people to shop online. From the
yeah,
network infrastructure to the payment infrastructure to, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put in place for people to shop online. And I think,
yeah,
this data, and there have been some thoughts around what COVID is going to do in terms of digital e-commerce, online shopping. The reality is it's still an infrastructure issue that we have to solve. Some markets have better infrastructure than other, and as a result, online shopping is targeted. So we will watch. This is, by the way, e-commerce is an area that we've been tracking for the past 3.5 years with our existing data set. So yeah, we've been following this. The second question, I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Patience.
Let me add to that, Yannick, is that we need to remember that Africa is a tale of two cities. So we do know that in countries like South Africa, for example, where we have the highest level of income inequality in the world, so they literally are the haves and the have-nots, and there are solutions that cater to both of those. So within the haves, for example, in South Africa, there is a market for people who do online shopping, who do have credit cards, and where solutions are put in place. I know the brands like the Woolworths brand, which has now incorporated a click and collect system where customers shop online and then they come and collect collects their groceries or collects the stuff from the stores,
Yep.
which is a form of e-commerce. And we also have brands like Pick and Pay, one of the major supermarkets in South Africa as well, which has partners with bottles to deliver, to get people who do online shopping from the supermarket to actually get their stuff delivered. So there is a market for it, but it's still a niche market when we're looking at the country as a whole. Because remember, with Africa, about 50 to 60% of the continent still live in rural areas. So we do have, it's not that we don't have e-commerce, it is there. Online shopping is happening, but it is still a niche at this moment.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question was, given that cybersecurity is still in its infancy and issues with transportation, logistics, how could digital e-commerce win back consumer confidence? So another question around e-commerce. So again, I think it's, what I said earlier, you still have those issues with transportation, logistics. I think the e-commerce play in Africa is it's a giant logistic play with a lot of different pieces that we have to work on. And so I think until we get all these pieces together, it's still going to be a challenging space. It's still going to be a niche space for a country like South Africa, as Patience was mentioning, because they do have some of that, what we call core infrastructure to support digital. And then so there's another question. Can you talk a little bit about sentiment among government officials? And then could this crisis be a booster to change consumer behavior? So the first question, which is, talking a bit about sentiment among government officials. So that's an interesting one. I know we're running a bit out of time, but so we asked the question around trust, and I'm just going to pull that up for you guys so you can see what what we have. So, and the question was around, do we believe that do we believe that our government has the ability to get us through the crisis, right? And so we're just going to see what people are basically saying. So to what extent? So the government is taking the outbreak seriously. We have the government was quick to action and combat. So let's take the first one, right? What do people think about their government, right? So when we ask, the government is taking the outbreak seriously, 5 is very much agree, and like 1 is very much disagree. So I think in general, people agree that governments are taking the crisis seriously. That's in general. So is it the same in every country? Well, no. So you can see that definitely, and we've seen this with South Africa, where the president has been doing an amazing job. I think he's been on the forefront, being the the champion, the captain. You have a lot of people that are basically saying, yes, the government is taking this seriously. And in some other countries like Tanzania, well, maybe not so much, right? So again, there is again the global trend or the African trend, but you also have the regional trend in every specific country. Country like Cameroon or Ivory Coast. So yeah, so in general, people do think that government. Now, the other interesting question was, I think we asked, was about, are we trusting our government to get us out of this crisis, right? So, do we have the right leadership to get us out of this? And even this one, right? Like public official trace, detect, and treat, because this becomes very important as some of the countries are opening up. Like, do we have that capability, or what do people think about that? And again, so if you look at the results here, it's a bit more nuanced, where you still have, I think, close to 48%
Mhm.
Could this crisis
Yeah.
be a booster for change, to change consumer behavior? So what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think it has the potential to do so, particularly from a health perspective. And I mean, I think what we're seeing now, as I said initially, people in Africa were more, before we had a huge number of cases, people were more afraid of the economic implications of the virus than they were of the health implications. As more and more people are getting infected, we're seeing the number of cases, for example, in South Africa, over 10,000. It's become a reality, and people actually know someone who's got the virus or has died of the virus. And I don't think that the changes that we've implemented in terms of the hygiene, the cleanliness, the frequent washing of hands, the social distancing, I don't think it will change back as quickly. But I think when we compare Africa to the global market, I think we will most likely lag behind in terms of permanent behavior change, because Africans are social creatures. We love going to congregate in our churches. We love to congregate with families at weddings and funerals, and and I don't think that's going to change. We've seen that a lot of, even in the lockdowns, governments had to actually impose, where they impose these restrictions, social gathering restrictions. There've been cases where police had to be deployed to break up, stop people from gathering for funerals and weddings. So yeah, it's I think we'll be slower to change than the global market. But I think there are some things that will remain.
Yep.
The main thing that we were looking out for was e-commerce, and as we said, it still remains as a niche. And we don't believe that it will be radically different, because in a lot of the African countries, the infrastructure just is not there. People don't have credit cards. So the change will be there, but it will be a more muted change compared to what we're seeing globally in other markets.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any more questions before we wrap up? So I know we went a little bit over time. The webinar is going to be recorded. We're going to put the recording on the website, so you guys can come back and have a look. And then the presentation is also going to be available in one of our newsletters. So feel free to subscribe, and we will continue to again monitor what's happening on the continent as it relates to COVID and consumer changes and habits, and continue to help brands navigate and stay ahead of the curve. Thank you.
Yeah, and just in conclusion, Yannick, if people are interested in finding out, we have a wealth of data. We've just basically shown you the tip of the iceberg. We have a lot of data in terms of specific categories, category information. So if you want to find out, data for your specific category in the country that you operate in, please do email us at info@cassiinsight.com. We do have that information if you want to do a demo of our data portal, or if you want a free trial where you have access to our entire COVID-19 database over the last 3 months. We have a lot more questions to what we've shown. Obviously, we're limited with time, so please feel free to contact us and get access to this very, very interesting data and information.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Cheers.